nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Susie, roll call, please.
Mr. Emerald,
Here.
Mr. Bendigo, Mrs. Kleppel,
Here?
Mrs. Lash, Mr. Mole,
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell, Mr. Rossi,
Here.
Mrs. Steinke,
Here.
Mr. Wiegand.
Here.
So we're going to adjust our order of our committee of the whole. We're going to start with number 9 because we have some visitors. So, Mr. Wian.
Okay, 9.1, persons that wish to address the board. I don't think we have anybody.
We
do
have nobody for any of them.
Okay. 9.2, Lobar Associates. The committee's request to consider and recommend approval of the proposal of Lobar Associates Incorporated in the amount of $3,375 for the relocation of door E08 or E108 in the district administration office.
This is just a part of what we're trying to do with the security and the secure entrances in all the buildings. And so with that door sitting right there, anyone that comes in the lobby is going to be sitting right in front of it. So it's just to push it around the corner.
Any discussion on that? Okay, move that forward. 9.3, Honeywell VAV repair. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the proposal of Honeywell in the amount of $9,682.19 to repair the variable air volume system in Office E108 in the district admin building.
Dr. Winters, do you want to give an update on that?
So the VAV system through Honeywell that heats and cools E108 in the district office and then on back in that same side of the office, there are issues with the dampers to where the one unit, the damper stays completely open and won't shut, keeping one portion of that wing excessively cold. And then we have the opposite problem in the other part of the office where the damper is closed and not appropriately opening. Those things so that we have those systems working as they're supposed to, and we can heat and cool that section of district office as it needs to be.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? Okay, here none, we'll move forward. 9.4 and 9.5 are voting items. So, you want to take that over?
I'll handle those two. 9.4 is a voting item, proposal Martin's Flooring. This is at the elementary school. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the proposal from Martin's Flooring, Inc. in the amount of $62,735 to remove and dispose of the second floor classroom area carpeting and replace it with vinyl composition tile, VCT. Entertain a motion?
So moved, Cleffel.
Second. Thank you. Discussion?
This is for the elementary school.
You might want to just stay up for the next one, too.
Sure.
Does this take care of all the carpet in the elementaries? Does this include the LGI, all the rooms upstairs? And are there any rooms downstairs that would not yet have carpet removed from them that are classrooms?
This is just the second floor. It takes care of the remaining rooms on the second floor that have carpet. And correct, on the first floor, the only remaining rooms that have carpet are not classrooms.
So it is the classroom carpeting though too. That's coming out. Whatever. I think it's fourth grade wing or third grade.
Yeah,
wing.
it's in the second, yes.
Okay, so all okay. So everything. There will be no classroom in the there's no carpeting in the elementary school.
There will be carpeting because some of the offices where we have a guidance counselor's office, where we have potentially a small room that may be an office for a speech therapist, et cetera, those small rooms have carpet. But the classrooms will not have carpet.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, where's Dr. O'Donnellson? Are there any classrooms on the bottom floor that have carpet other than, not offices, but classrooms? then yes.
I do believe that it's remaining in the LGI.
Yes. Do you have the LGI in this quote?
I don't believe so. I think.
I'm not 100% sure.
Just the classrooms.
Yeah, I think it's just classrooms, correct.
Are we looking to do the rest of those in another phase, or how, is it still all the original carpeting in all those rooms? The LGI in those offices?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, we will talk to, and probably some of those rooms may be for carpet replacement. It may be a noise issue and some things like that are not classrooms.
Yeah, like the LGI, I get that. Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It passes 6-0. We have a second voting item for tonight. Another proposal, Martin's Flooring. This is now at the middle school. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval for the proposal from Martin's Flooring in the amount of $86,980 to remove the carpeting from the middle school corridors and common areas and replace with polished, stained concrete and vinyl cove bases. Entertain a motion.
So moved, Cluffel.
Second,
Second, Rossi.
discussion.
Just to be clear, this is not installation of polished concrete, it's polishing the existing concrete substrate, correct?
That's correct.
Will there be any, like, skid-proof, material put down? I mean, concrete can be slippery if wet. When the kids are coming in and out, if it's raining and their shoes are wet, will there be anything to prevent that from happening?
I believe that the finish is such that it will help with that, but I will confirm and we can get that information to you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on 9.6?
When, this is a little bit 9.4 too. What's the schedule look like to get this, once we approve it here? I know we're voting on it now, so.
Correct. So purchase order gets approved. Martin's tells us 2 weeks is about their timeline once purchase order is processed. So that should put us starting the project right at the end of this month. They said they anticipate about a month to do the project. So that's still, even if it pushes, closer to 6 weeks, that still puts us in a position to have it all done and ready to go before staff and students come back in August.
Were these both Martin Flooring? Like,
Yeah.
are they going, yeah, so,
Yes.
they're both doing this, they're going to be doing these at the same time, both projects, or are they doing one and then moving to the other building?
My understanding is that they're going to be doing them at the same time, but
I
again,
mean, it's
I'll
it's
confirm
different
that.
crews, so I would assume,
Yes.
I just want to make sure.
And it's different, they're doing different
That's
types
what I
of
mean,
flooring
yeah.
in each building as well, so.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That also passes 6-0. Dan, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, 9.6, maintenance agreement Tri-States. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of a maintenance agreement with Tri-State HVAC Equipment LLC in the amount of $18,850 for a term of 1 year from July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 26 for inspection and maintenance of the high school variable refrigerant volume system. Any discussion or comments about that? All right, hearing none, we'll push that forward. 9.7, quote from Elk Environmental Services. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval for the quote from Elk Environmental Services for transportation disposal of various chemicals located in the high school in an estimated amount of $10,950. What are we looking at here? What are they getting rid of? And where'd $11,000 worth of chemicals come from that we're getting rid of?
This is actually, if you look out where the new generator is, it's where the old chillers used to be. There are blue barrels out there. They were here, they preceded me, and they have been out there. And so we've been asking for those to be disposed of and had it tested first to see what it was. So I can't tell you how long they've been here. I just know that they were here when I got here, and that's been quite some time, and we've been trying to have them removed. So I think the report gives, the composition of what they tested and found to be in those barrels. But that's what we want to do, is get rid of them.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right, we'll move that forward. Oh, there we go, 9.8. Any old or new business?
We have three things.
Yeah.
So I asked Dr. Winters to just do a little discussion on the summer pool maintenance needs and what the proposed schedule of that work would look like.
So initially, in looking at any summer cleaning or maintenance needs at the pool, we initially thought that that work may take longer. Once we got in there and looked at it more, anticipated that we don't need a full week to get done what we need to get done, probably, or full month rather, probably something that we can do in about a week. So our intention is to keep the pool open throughout the summer and look that week of June the 30th, which is a shortened week anyway, with July 4th being on a Friday, doing the maintenance that needs to be done during that week, notifying folks of that fact, and then business as usual for the remainder of the summer.
And then a little update on the landscaping quotes. The board had asked that we prepare and attempt to receive to solicit quotes on landscaping services. So I'll let Dr. Winters talk about that.
Sure. So in the process of getting multiple quotes for landscaping, one of the quotes we have already. The second quote is going to be finalized this week, and so we will have a recommendation brought to the board at next week's meeting.
Any questions on landscaping for Dr. Winters? Okay, thank you, Dr. Winters.
You're welcome.
Our third and final item is we are pleased to have, Kristen, would you like to introduce everybody? And sure.
Hello, good evening. So we have with us Lauren Stadel, who is the Managing Director at Raymond James and Associates, and we have Zachary Williard, who is the Managing Director at PFM Financial Advisors, and they're going to be giving a brief overview of our bond purchasing and just kind of giving us a snapshot of the timeline and what that looks like in terms of the field house.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back out here this evening. Since the cart is getting a little bit further down the path, we thought it would be important to bring the team out tonight because we're getting closer to a point in time where we may be ready to execute a bond issue within the next 6 to 9 months, I would say. So as the timing gets honed in a little bit further, we wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page. So just a brief update this evening on some numbers that you've seen in the past. Nothing real major to report on interest rates. That's the first chart that we have in there. Rates are continuing to kind of hang in this trading range that we've been experiencing for the last several weeks. We kind of would have thought that what's going on in the Middle East would have pushed rates downward pretty quickly, and in another date and era that may have happened, but we're kind of stuck here in this range that we're in. And so while we aren't, again, at those ultimate lows that we saw back in 2020 in the midst of COVID, we were a little spoiled by that. Still a pretty decent time to be considering a borrowing. And given the fact that the size and scope of your project has changed a little bit, we did update the numbers and update the interest rates, and things are still looking pretty good. So if you turn to page number 3, you can see the updated study of borrowing up to $15 million. And so if you can recall from previous conversations, the existing debt of the school district is there in column number 2. The high water mark in fiscals 25 through 27 is about $3.1 million a year in debt service, and then we've got a drop off down to 2.4 million. And so if we borrow before we get over that high water mark, we do need to pay some interest expense. And so it kind of pushes your debt service up over that number a little bit. And additionally, because the project size has gone up marginally, it has pushed the borrowing up to about 15 million, give or take, is what we're looking at right now. So while previously the goal had been to keep future debt service at about $3.1 million, now given that we're borrowing closer to 15 million, it's needing to creep up just moderately to the about $3.2 million level. But we are able to, as you may recall from previous conversations, we won't really need to come out of pocket for that 2-year period where we don't yet have the drop in debt service, because legally we're allowed to borrow those debt service payments that are made over a 2-year period, up to a 2-year period. So it's called capitalized interest. That money will be borrowed within the bond funds itself and paid for out of an escrow. So the district will not actually have to pay anything out of pocket on the debt service for the new bonds for the first 2 fiscal years that they are in existence. And so we're still in a really good spot. From a rate perspective, if we were to execute this today, I would guess we'd probably be in the high 3s to low 4% range, probably 4 to 4.10, I would say, if we were to go out and do something today. So we do have a little bit of interest rate contingency built into these numbers. So if we did execute today, the numbers would look a little bit better than what you see on this page. I'll turn it over to Zach to talk a little bit more about timing.
Great. Real quick, to finish up page 3, just to reiterate, you hear about all these things happening in the world, whether it's the Middle East or whether it's tariff and inflation, but the borrowing rates, our firm and Lauren's firm have priced probably a dozen transactions since the beginning of the month, and these are still happening regardless of all these events, right? And interest rates kind of continue to hang in there. And the other thing I think worth noting on page 3, and this may have been said at a previous meeting, but when we did the 2020 borrowing, which was for about 23 million of capital projects, the board did have the foresight of the administration that you were going to have this other project coming down the road. And so when you look in column 2 and you see how the debt service was about $3.1 million and then it drops down to about 2.4 in the 2028 budget year, that was very intentional, knowing that these kind of projects were in the hopper and it would be a few years and you'd get to them. So, you do have this kind of nice opportunity to borrow for this next project. And while it is going to hit your budget a little bit, it's, it's hitting your budget to the tune of maybe 100 or 150,000 instead of $700,000, right? So I just think you deserve some credit for the planning there, back 5 years ago. So if you flip to page 4.
Interest from that time.
Yeah, I think we borrowed that at exactly 1%. Yeah. So the market's changed, but still 4% is not a bad rate. It's just not the.
We hit the historical level.
That was the low point.
Coming in.
Yeah.
And saying, it was like a limbo. How low can we go?
Yeah. That was amazing.
We hit
Literally.
things and we settled that date. That was the bottom. Because right after that, it creeped. A little bit.
Right.
It still creeped out.
Very good planning.
Sometimes it's better to be low key.
Absolutely. And so to that point, timing-wise, when you go to page 4, now I think we expect this to shift around a little bit, but what we want to do is just come up with a sample timeline. So what we did was we worked backwards here, assuming that you wanted money in the bank kind of at the beginning of December. This is what this timeline does. So it just gives you an idea, you could speed this up a month, you could push this back a month. But at your September board meeting, if you were to pass the debt resolution, okay, then we would start to work through the credit rating process and through all the documents that you need to do to put together to go sell 15 million of bonds. So you can see, we kind of do that over the month of October. Then early in November, we could lock in interest rates. And then it takes about 30 days to settle the transaction to go through the state processes. So you price November 3rd, and then you have money kind of at the beginning of December. So again, if we decided to move this up or move this back, just depending on what's going on with the project or what's going on in the market, this gives you an idea of kind of how long it takes to get through the process.
And I think at this point in time, and Zach can correct me if he thinks otherwise, there's really nothing emergent in the market that is telling us, A, we either need to hurry up and get this bond priced quickly before you bid the project, or that we should pump the brakes and wait until after long after. So I think right now our probably recommended course of action would be to wait until bids have come in, because the bidding environment has been a little tricky lately, but I've actually seen a couple bids come in below budget. So let's knock on wood and hope that that happens. But I think right now, our recommended path would be, let's plan to actually get the money once we know exactly how much the project's gonna cost, exactly how much we feel comfortable spending from your own proceeds, and so that we are borrowing exactly the right number and not maybe over borrowing or under borrowing depending on where project bids come in. All of that to be said, if we do see rates drop precipitously over the next couple months, we might come back and say, you know what, maybe we should take advantage of a good situation and go ahead and get it done. So that would be our recommendation, I think, at this point in time.
Yeah, and just to remind everybody, because it's been a few years, when we talk about the September meeting, when you pass the parameters resolution, that is something that you can do early. It doesn't lock you into actually borrowing the money. What it does is it kind of puts the framework in place so that when we're ready to borrow the money, the resolution's already there. So I think passing that, at some meeting here early this fall is a good idea, because it kind of takes that part of the timeline out, right? So that if something happens and we do decide, hey, we want to go quick, do this in the next 3 weeks, we don't need to then wait for your next board meeting, then pass the resolution, and then kind of keep moving. So you can do that, and you can still pump the brakes, and we can still be patient, kind of as things evolve here over the coming months. Any questions? Okay, hopefully that was helpful.
Thank
Great.
you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. You bet.
Thank you.
So I think that concludes 9.8. Any other old or new business for buildings and grounds? Hearing none, we'll go to the beginning. Let's go to 6.0.
All right. 6.1, persons who wish to address the board. We have none.
Solicitor's report?
6.0, sorry. Solicitor's report.
I know, you always love to hear from me. Just as a brief update to the board as well as to the public, the board may know, or the board will know, the public may recall that we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Northern Berks Police Commission to have a school resource officer present periodically in the schools at the end of the 2024-2025 school year. That program went well, and as a result, I did prepare a formal agreement for a full-time school resource officer with the commission. Circulated that to the commission solicitor. I received some feedback to that, which we can discuss further in executive session, but just wanted to give everyone an update that that process is moving forward. I remain optimistic that we'll be able to work together and come to a mutually agreed upon agreement, hopefully sooner than later. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, like I said, 6.1, we have no speakers. 6.2, retirement. The committee is requested to consider and accept with best wishes for the future the following resignation due to retirement effective with the last day of the 25-26 school year unless otherwise noted. Ms. Sharon Whitman, special education paraprofessional at the high school, effective July 24th, 2025. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. 6.3, employment, Hermione. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of Mr. Noah Hermione, elementary PK-4 teacher, bachelor, step 1, $56,303, effective with the start of the 25-26 school year to fill the vacancy created by retirement of Mrs. Kathleen Gwozdowski. Any questions or comments? Move that forward. 6.4, employment substitutes. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following substitutes for the 24-25 school year. So should be 25-26.
Robin, can you just speak to that?
24, 25 is correct.
Okay.
These individuals were approved for the end of this school year, and then over the summer, you'll start to see the recommendations for the approvals of the substitutes for the 25, 26 school year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
George Eckert, paraprofessional. Brittany Fernandes, food services worker. Stacy Lehman, custodian. Sierra Merkel, paraprofessional. Benjamin Miller, music, PK to 12. Any questions or comments? We'll move that forward. 6.5, employment volunteers. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following volunteers for the 25-26 school year. Kathy Gwozdowski, elementary school. Melissa Hartranft, elementary school. Heather Johnston, elementary and middle school. Jennifer Logan, elementary school. Any questions or comments? 6.6, employment, game workers. The committee is requested to consider and recommend for approval the following game workers for the 24-25 school year to be paid $40 per event. James Goyshard, Jonathan Jenkins, and Sierra Merkel. Any comments? All right, moving that on. 6.7, employment, extracurricular. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following extracurricular appointments for the 25-26 school year. Olivia Martz, field hockey varsity head coach at a salary of $7,090. Richard Sensenig, field hockey varsity assistant coach at a salary of $4,130. And Stephen Wise, wrestling assistant coach, volunteer. Any questions or comments? Moving on to 6.8, employment, part-time temporary technology project employees. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following part-time temporary technology project employees at an hourly rate of pay of $15.93. Jesse Ganter-Scott, Jay Saizi, Logan Kraus, and Charles Mertz. Any comments? Move that forward. 6.9, employment, extended school year. The committee is requested to consider and recommend for approval extended school year staff with teachers to be paid the professional hourly rate of $40 per the SVEA collective bargaining agreement. Paraprofessionals and substitute paraprofessionals to be paid at their regular hourly rate. Amelia Herbert, teacher. Melissa Hernandez, Maritissa Hernandez, paraprofessional. Corey Kerr, paraprofessional. Kimberly Lugard, substitute teacher. Olivia Martz, teacher. Michael McDermott, substitute teacher. Jeremy Murphy, teacher. Christine Wynn, paraprofessional. Beth O'Neill, teacher. Roberta Nye, paraprofessional. Brian Pepperling, teacher. Christy Robinson, teacher. Daniel Savage, teacher. Aaron Snyder, teacher. Jacelyn Williams, substitute teacher. Sharon Whitman, paraprofessional. Millie Reppert, paraprofessional. Any comments or questions? All right, the committee is, we're on to 6.10. The committee is requested to consider and recommend for approval summer school staff with teachers to be paid the professional hourly rate of $40 per the SVEA collective bargaining agreement. Teachers will only be used as student enrollment dictates. There's a very lengthy list here, so I'll direct you to the agenda to read all of them if you so choose. All right, moving on. Are any questions or comments? Moving on to 6.11. Policy, Personnel, and Family and Medical Leave Act. The committee is requested to consider and acknowledge the following Family and Medical Leave Act leaves of absence. Michelle DeStefano Conchar, mathematics teacher at the high school, effective August 18th, 2025 through November 7th, 2025. Stephanie Wolf, transportation and accounts payable secretary, effective May 22nd, 2025 through June 9th, 2025. Any comments? Move that forward. 6.12, Act 93, Non-Certified Compensation Plan. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the Act 93 Non-Certified Compensation Plan. Any comments or questions? I'll move that forward. 6.13, Act 93 Certified Compensation Plan. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the Act 93 Certified Compensation Plan. Any questions or comments? Move that forward. 6.14, School Resource Officer Agreement. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the agreement with the Northern Berks Police Commission and the authority for the agreement to be executed, subject to the review and final approval of the school district solicitor. Any questions or comments? Move that forward. 6.15, any other old or new business? All right, with that, I guess we're moving on to 7.0.
Okay, 7.0, Curriculum and Technology. 7.1, persons who wish to address the board. I don't think we had anybody for anything, so. 7.2, cloud-based email security. Let me pull this up here. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the quote from BCIU for cloud-based email security. Any comments or questions on that?
Just a note for the public, a number of these are listed generically because it is part of our cybersecurity and what we need to do to make sure that we don't provide information that outside actors could use to try to penetrate our system. So the board has access to the information, but it's not something that we share publicly.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll move that forward. 7.3, BCIU EdTech Pool Council. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval renewing the membership of the BCIU EdTech Pool Council for the 2025-2026 at the cost of $577.50. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move that forward. 7.4, server refresh and software renewal. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of server refresh and software renewal. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. 9.5, managed network services. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the 3-year agreement with Riverside Technologies, Inc. for managed network services at an annual cost of $18,000. Any comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move that forward. 9.6, iPad replacements. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of Apple Financial Service proposal to replace 200 iPads for the kindergarten classrooms. And then there's links for those quotes. Any questions or comments about that?
Just a couple, and Mr. Sobczak, maybe you want to come up so we can just talk about this a little bit. This quote that the board sees is for 200. We have 150 kindergarten students. So I'm going to let Mr. Sobczak talk about this and the cost and how we plan his work with Mrs. Wallace about how that gets paid out and what fiscal years.
Sure. So as Dr. Tasher had mentioned, there's right now anticipating 150 students enrolling into kindergarten. This is a refresh for all kindergarten iPads that cannot quite get up to the latest iOS version or older devices. So they're all going to be on the same device, 150 of them with 20 spares. Right now you see 200 total listed. We're going to drop that by about 30 because what we're going to look to do is have students take their device from kindergarten into the Discovery classroom. So that 30 for Discovery is going to get dropped from the quote. As far as which budget season or budget cycle this is coming out of, we're booking it all this year, but it's actually spread out over a 3-year 0% finance.
Just based on previous years, is 20 enough spares that,
Yeah,
that will...
at the elementary, so far they haven't taken them home. There is a potential that could increase if the damage could increase if the students get to take it home. But working with Apple, we actually opted to go for their case on the device, which is slightly more, but it's offset by the reduction in cost on the Apple Care Plus, and it increases our number of instances per iPad to 2 per year as opposed to 1, and it turns it to a 0 deductible instead of about 109 per incident. So we opted for the case, but it's offset by that reduction in the Apple Care costs plus the improved coverage on the device for going with their case.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did we, at one point, we used to have insurance and all that with the parents. So where did we end? I know we didn't because there were some issues of how it was set up and established and,
Yeah, so we haven't done that since my time here at Schuylkill Valley. It's always difficult to have a parent involved in the insurance process and having them submit the claim. Our iPads, all of our iPads that we're purchasing are going to have that Apple Care Plus on them. So if there's any kind of damage, we get 2 per year. We can send them into Apple. They will replace or fix them or replace them if they're unable to fix them. And by going with their case, we have no deductible, so there's no additional cost.
I'm just trying, because we've talked about it, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to look at it, and, we're always behind.
Yeah,
and that's fine. I'm just
Yeah, so
trying
the
to
Apple
make sure
Care.
the rest of the board gets that clarity, because,
Yeah.
most of us lived through that at one point with
Yeah,
it.
the Apple Care is rolled into the cost, so there's not
Yep.
a separate quote coming for insurance. Yep. Mhm.
Thank you, Mike.
Seven point seven, science curriculum resources, K through 12. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the science curriculum resources for Discovery Ed for the elementary and high school at the amount of $33,900.
So the elementary K1 and 2 decided that because they do a lot of their science work within their language arts curriculum, they would like to have mystery science, which is part of Discovery Education, to help them fill the gaps that they would not be covering with their language arts lessons. So there are, so mystery science is actually something that a number of school districts use. It's fun. They have Mystery Doug, and he presents the question, and then the students do the experiment, and they learn through that. It's all something that they see through videos and will be able to see on their iPads. So that was what they chose. And then the high school asked to have the Discovery Tech book, which is also will be on the student Chromebooks. It is basically an electronic textbook that they will use, but because it's Discovery, it's embedded with lots of videos. All of the text is able to be lowered actually to grade levels if they need it. It can also be translated into Spanish. It can read it out loud to them. So it is a really nice resource for those students to be able to use. The science curriculum resources for, it's separated 3 to 5 and then 6 to 8. Did you want to say that first and then I'll talk about it? Okay.
Okay, so we'll move.
We'll let you stand up there, yeah.
Move 7.7 forward. 7.8, science curriculum for grades 3 through 5. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of rated teach kits from ECA in the amount of $22,448. This reflects a 3-year commitment for rental kits.
Yes. So grades 3 through 5 are using OpenSciEd for their science curriculum. So this is actually a company that provides all of the materials that the teachers need all ready to go, already prepared for the units that they will be teaching. So this is a rental. So what happens is that they actually, when the teachers are ready for that unit, they actually deliver all of the materials to the teachers. They're already set up and ready to go. Everything is prepared. They don't have to do anything except take it out of the box. And then once the teachers are finished with the experiments and all of the things that they are doing in that unit, they pack it all back up and send it back. And then the following, they'll refurbish it and replace everything. and then send it back to the teachers the following year, all ready to go again for the next year. So the elementary teachers really felt like that was really going to help them a lot in terms of not having to prepare all of that, and everything is already ready for them, and then they're not ordering individual little things to make sure that they have everything that they need for every single experiment and lab that they're going to do. It's all comes right in that kit. So it's actually a very nice product, and they're excited about it.
How far in advance do they have to let the company know that they're going to be on a certain section so that they can have the materials in time?
They actually don't need very much notice. They are able to, I mean, of course, once they get, say, Unit 1, then they kind of have an idea. It probably takes about 3 months to do one unit. So they would approximate that in about 3 months the teachers would need it, but if we call them a week ahead and say, oh, we need it next week, like they'll have it to us in the following week.
And then what happens when we package everything up to send it back if something gets lost or broken, or, you know, how does that work? Does that affect costs or anything like that? Because we're dealing with, you know, small kids. And
so the lost and broken, actually, so that's part of the rental. So because we're renting it from them, like they take care of all of that. So everything that we're paying for is for them to refurbish everything. So that includes replacing something that may have gotten broken. Of course, all of the consumable materials would have to be replaced for the following year. But no, they take care of everything. That's what we're paying for those 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 7-8, we'll move that forward. 7.9, science curriculum resources for grades 6 through 8. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of open SciEd kits in the amount of $27,133.37. This is for the purchase of the science kits.
So 6 through 8 is also using Open SciEd. However, they do not offer the rental version or the rental option for middle schools, mainly because they said that middle schools don't tend to want to have that. So what happens in that case is that the kit will be delivered and then they have everything to use in it and it's ours. And then every year subsequent, we only have to reorder the things that are the consumables that were in the kit. Or if something is broken, we would have to order that again because it was broken. But the kits are actually ours. So because middle school 6 through 8, the kinds of things that they're getting in their kit and that they're doing in their labs are very different than what they might be doing in elementary school. Schools don't tend to want to rent them, so they actually just purchase them. So this is a little bit different in that we are purchasing those kits. And then in subsequent years, we would just be purchasing whatever needs to be replaced in the kit.
Do you have a rough idea of what that number looks like?
I don't, but I could certainly get that for you.
And is there like a price sheet? Say we break 6 beakers, you know, what is that going to cost us to replace
Yes,
them? Is it
I can get
comparable to getting them on our own from
Mhm.
another supplier?
Yep, I can absolutely get that for you. Yes, Mr. Rossi.
For the kits, do they come with materials? Do they come with materials for conducting experiments and doing other science activities, or is it just strictly paper?
It is all the experiments.
Okay.
So,
Do you have storage area for these?
yes.
Okay. I was just curious, because it seems like we get a whole lot of equipment.
Mhm.
Where would it go?
Yep, nope, we're okay.
Do these kits, what are they recommending is the lifespan of these kits? You know, the consumables will go through, but I'm saying the actual kit. Like, when are we looking to replace everything inside that kit? Is it like it's 3-year as far as like the other?
That is actually a great question. I wouldn't want to guess, so let me find out for you. I mean, the 3 years would make sense to me, considering that that's what they do with their rentals, but I would think also it might depend on what's in each individual kit. There may be things that last longer than other things. So let me try to get a better breakdown of what specifically is in them, and then I can get a better idea for you of the lifespan of the things in the kit.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Will these kits also be used
No, because they still, I believe, will be, oh, go ahead.
They use Lincoln Learning, and so that is the curriculum for the students
Yeah.
that are there.
And the total here, is that for the 3 years, or is that each year?
No, so the 6 to 8 quote, that is just for the first year. And then every year subsequent would just be replacing the consumable items or anything that is broken. The ones for grades 3, 4, and 5, that is for the 3 years of a rental. So we don't own those, we just rent them.
But so stepping back to that one, the 22,448 is for 3 years, not each year.
Right,
For
that's
3
for
years.
3 years.
But then for 710, the one we're talking about, the 206, 936, 55 is one time, but then we have to replace whatever is used or broken.
Well, wait, is the 22,000, that's the annual, correct, of that 3 years?
I'm sorry, I jumped down to 710. 79, this 27, 133, 37. That is a one-time, and then, if we need
And then whatever you need to
liquids or
replace,
whatever
you
that are
would
replaced,
purchase
we
in
would-
future years, yes.
Annual.
No, that's the first time upfront cost. Get you all the basics, and then each year you'll have to renew any of the consumables. So the
Okay.
cost should be less in subsequent years.
Yeah, that's for 6 through 8.
Yes.
Maybe I'm confused. Maybe it's just me.
All right, then.
7-8 was 3 through 6. That was the 3-year rental.
3 to 5.
3
So
to
they are
5.
just renting, so those don't belong to us, we're just renting, but they take the things back, they refurbish the kit and then send it back to us the following
Yeah,
year. But
understood.
they aren't ours.
That number, is that an annual?
For 3 to 5, that's for 3 years of a rental.
Okay, that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I got you. Okay. I'm all caught up now. This wasn't even my question, Karen. I don't even know how I got
I'm
lost
sorry,
in
I
this.
was.
If you open the proposal,
Confusing the
it
topic.
shows you the year 1 plus year 2 plus year 3, and all that adds up to that
Okay.
total figure.
The numbers were just so close that it's like,
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments on 7-9? Okay, 7-10, math curriculum resources K through 8. Committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the mathematics resources from McGraw-Hill in the amount of $206,936.55, which reflects a 3-year commitment.
So these are all of the resources that I did the presentation on at the May voting meeting. So this is everything for K through 8, and that includes the Algebra 1 that we are going to be offering to 7th graders in 7th grade. And then also we have a class set of geometry because we've been discussing accelerating our 8th grade students and potentially providing geometry to them in addition to Algebra 1 this coming year. So we wanted to have that. We're still talking about that, but we wanted to have that in case that was something that we were able to do as we're working on the middle school schedule. But of course, those would be the resources because those 7th graders who are going to be taking Algebra 1 this coming school year, because they would then the following year be taking geometry, we would have, even if we didn't do it, we'll have them then for them to use the following year. But that is all the consumables, all of the access to Alex, which is that personalized learning system that I talked about, all of the digital platform, the digital textbook, the hardcover textbooks that Algebra 1 and geometry would have, all of the teacher resources, manipulative kits, all of that is included in that price, and that's for 3 years.
so all 7th graders are going to be taking Algebra 1?
No. So there are a number, right now it looks like 40 students. So we gave the students in 7th grade the CDT, which is a diagnostic test, which is actually gauging students' performance on grades 6 through 8 standards. And we could identify 40 students that are going to be going into 7th grade this next school year who actually scored advanced or high proficient on 6th through 8th grade standards. So we have identified those students as students that we believe would be great candidates to take Algebra 1 as a 7th grader. So we are planning to send a letter home to parents to let them know that their child accomplished this and that we're planning to put them in Algebra 1 in 7th grade. And then the goal is that then in 8th grade they would take geometry, and then that will still put all of those students on the path to take calculus A, B, and B, C in high school if they wish to take AP statistics if they wish to. It gives them a lot more opportunity, not only for advanced math in high school, but also advanced sciences. So it just puts them on a better path so that they're not having to double up later on in order to achieve that. Or as we know we had in the past until this school year, or even this school year, we did a little bit, but we had the students who were taking that double math class where they had one period where they were trying to get in Algebra 2 and geometry at the same time. This year, those students, in order to accomplish that, are taking Algebra 2 all year and then geometry for a semester. But we'd like to get away from having to do that all together. So by allowing those students to take Algebra 1 in 7th grade, they will then only have to take one math class per year and still accomplish AP Calculus BC if they wish as a senior, or AP Statistics, or any other math or advanced science class that they wish to without having to double up.
And then what about all of the students besides those 40? What will they be taking?
So
for
they'll
7th
be
grade?
taking, so the course for 7th grade is called Accelerated. So the reason it's that is because we offer Algebra 1 to all of our 8th grade students. So that accelerated course in grade 7 actually allows the students to get in all of the standards that they need in 7th grade and the things that would be missed in 8th grade because they're taking Algebra 1. So there's different standards for Algebra 1 and grade 8 standards. Some of those standards are similar and some of them are a little bit different. So it makes sure that the students get everything that they need by the time they are going into 8th grade so that they're prepared to take Algebra 1 as an 8th grader. So they'll be taking a 7th grade course very similar to what they've been doing. The textbook is just called Accelerated, but because the students have been taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, the teachers have been having to do that all along. So the textbook is just called Accelerated, but it covers everything that they need in order to be prepared to take Algebra 1 as an 8th grade student. So you would have the majority of our 8th grade students taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and then you'll have not this school year, but the following school year, you'll have that group of 40 students taking geometry as an 8th grader.
'Cause I was under the impression that we weren't grouping kids for math. So it sounds like we are grouping kids for math if we have this group of 40, and then there will be a group of everyone else. So are we grouping kids for math, or are we not grouping
So we
kids
are
for math?
only accelerating students. So we are going to be accelerating students who are able to be accelerated, but all students, if they are not in that accelerated group, will be taking the same math class. So we're not doing what we believe may have been happening in the past, where we had students who were in a low math class, students in a middle or average math class, and students in a high math class. We're not doing that. We are simply taking a group of students who can be accelerated, and we're accelerating them in order to provide them more of an opportunity to take advanced science and math at the high school level.
I'm not understanding the difference.
It sounds like there's not 3 tiers. It sounds like it's not 3 tiers, just 2 tiers.
Yeah, there's
the
just-
accelerated
Well,
and every,
One,
and the
but for example, we only had 2 math teachers for 8th grade, so how were they tiering it 3 different ways previously?
That is correct,
Which
Mr.
is
Rossi.
always going to happen.
Well,
Yes. So what had been happening was they were grouping students intentionally so that some students were moving faster than others. But unfortunately, some of those students were not getting where they needed to be in order to complete the course. So we had students who were behind, and in this lower level class, but they were actually not getting everything that they needed. So we don't want that to happen anymore. We feel like, well, we know that that's not appropriate. There's a lot of research that says that tracking students, which is what you would call that, is in fact the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics call it insidious tracking students. But what we are looking to do is simply to accelerate those students who show that they have the ability to be accelerated, and so providing them that opportunity to take those advanced courses. So most all students are going to be, with the exception of 40, about 40, are going to be taking the 7th grade math, the 6th grade math, the 7th grade math, the 8th grade Algebra 1, and then we'll have that group of about 40 each year who can be accelerated and take Algebra 1 in the 7th grade level and geometry at the 8th grade level, and then they can move on to Algebra 2 and eventually both of the AP Calculus courses if they wish to, or the AP Statistics course if they wish to, and then of course there's the 2 AP Physics courses at the high school level. There's a number of things that they don't necessarily or may not be able to get to if we were not to accelerate them early. Then they would have to be doubling up in the high school, which is a lot for students to do.
I completely understand, because my son is going to be doubling up because of how things were. So I'm just trying to figure out how this is going to be different, because it still sounds like we're going to have a subset of kids that are going to be grouped one way and a subset of kids that are going to be grouped another way. So you still have kids that are going to be advancing through differently, which I understand. I'm not saying that that shouldn't happen. I'm just not understanding how it's different.
We
Well-
think the lower set is being eliminated, it's general, and then the advanced, the accelerated, if I understand it correctly.
But the
part of
the
it-
low and the middle,
Are gonna be-
from what I understand, are being taught the same thing. They just might not be pacing through it at the same rate because
Yeah, they don't get as far.
Yeah, I mean,
because
But now they'll all get as far, so if you're gonna have the kids that have better aptitude for math, get more opportunity.
how are you going to guarantee that they're all still going to get through all of the material that they're going to get as far?
What was happening prior, as explained to us, is there were a subset of students who were not being, did not have the opportunity to take all of the content. So they did not get all of the standard content in that class. And that is a problem for students who then have to go and take an assessment or try to matriculate into the next class. So what we had is students that, by virtue of a level that they were in, may not have gotten every topic, and the standards weren't being addressed. So to your point, it is important that all students have access to all the standards. There are some students that have already demonstrated that they understand all those standards and they're ready to accelerate. But for everyone else, they need to have access to those standards. And for students that may need additional scaffolding, that is where we're talking about small group in the classroom and additional time, individual tutoring that students would be assigned to in their schedule to try to close any gaps that students may have. But they still have to have access to that grade level work in order to progress. And when we don't, what we find is it not only impacts their math, but as they move to high school, it impacts their science.
Is that going to be done through ISTA, or is there going to be another functionality?
No, that will be done in a time period, originally, as I understand it, ISTA, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Gabrilik, stood for Individualized Student Tutoring and Assistance. Did I get it right? And what was to be happening is students would receive individualized tutoring there. A number of students are in study hall during that period. And what we're trying to do now is to say, wait, let's let parents know if your child has a gap that needs to be closed, we're going to assign them to the tutoring and let the parents know, here's what we're attempting to accomplish during that period. If not, your child would be assigned to what would amount to be that study hall during that period of time. So I think that was the original intent of what was happening, but it was also used for other things that were occurring during that period, and we're trying to close that gap so that it is about individualized tutoring to make sure that students close the gap that they have in math. And we see that that's been a problem in our assessments and what's been happening at the middle school.
So when will that be occurring? In the classroom time?
No, that will be a separate period. So some students will have a study hall, some students will be, their parents will receive a letter that says, your child is will have individualized tutoring during this period because there's a gap to close.
So it's going to be ISTA, we're just not going to call it ISTA anymore?
Well, well, I don't know if that's exactly what ISTA was. I think that was
That's what it was intended to be.
That was the intended function, but I think what we want to do is let parents know clearly, if your child is receiving individualized tutoring, where are they at when they go in there? And at the end of 9 weeks and at the end of a semester, what gap has been closed by showing parents the data? And if your child's not in that, I think parents should be able to know that their child will be in a study hall for that period. So we want to be pretty intentional about how we're communicating that, and I know Mrs. Rexroad and Dr. Gabrilik are working on that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just one quick question here to summarize. So the way I take it is this tracking model. For example, let's just say it was algebra. You'd have 3 different groups, and maybe the highest group would get to chapter 12, the middle group would get to chapter 10, the bottom group would get to chapter 8, and then they move on next year. And so they're not, but under this new model where we can accelerate people, all 3 groups will be getting all 12 chapters, and then the ones that are more advanced get the extra. So that's the difference, is everybody's getting the bare minimum as opposed to the lowest group not getting what we would consider the bare minimum.
I mean, that's obviously an ideal scenario, but we don't live in an ideal world, is where I'm struggling to
that's where the
connect
tutoring
the pieces.
comes in for the ones who need the extra help. You're basically merging those bottom 2 groups together and using one-on-one tutoring or group tutoring to fill the gaps.
And one of the nice things with the new program, with the new materials, is that when I presented it, if you remember, it actually is going to give us a lot of data, and we don't have that right now. So one of the really nice things is that the teacher will be able to see exactly what a student knows, what they're not as strong with. When they have just their regular class every day, there should be time that is devoted to working on those skills in class, and then the students that need things beyond that, because maybe they're missing some of those basic skills, those are students that we want to target in that additional tutoring time so that they're getting that additional time so that they can gain those skills that they might be missing that are even beyond what is happening in that classroom. So we want to make sure that we're getting all of those students. But I agree, yes, if we want to make sure that everybody gets all 12 chapters, there are 12 chapters, we want to make sure everybody gets it. We have a responsibility to make sure that every student gets all of those standards and masters those standards. And so we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that that happens. And if they need that additional time, that extra tutoring time, then they'll have it. But that is our responsibility to do that. And so we want to give everybody that opportunity and not have students going at a slower pace and then not making it.
I think the nice thing is, as you described in your presentation last month, was, all the internal tracking and everything that passes through, because I remember you were saying the teachers were excited. So like if somebody's taking notes about a student in, I'm going to pick it, whatever, grade 7, and they're going to 8, that tracks through. So if this math teacher takes more copious notes than somebody else, or they are looking at something differently, this kind of is all built in, and it's tracking, and the assessments, as I understood, will, depending on the test that they take and the they can assess what skills they're lacking, and it'll focus the teacher, allow them to give them the right tools to get those students the additional help as required.
Yes, every assessment that the student takes, both with the program itself, but then in addition that Alex, which is the personalized learning program, every single assessment that the student takes the teacher gets data that is there and lets the teacher know what they need and what they're strong in as well. And then they can, and it will prescribe for them what they need. So we can use that data to help us when they're getting the extra tutoring as well. But yes, it does follow them. So
Right.
then the following year teacher will see all of that data and know exactly what a student is strong in and what they need some more work with.
I think it's a great
And
asset.
just for clarity, when you were speaking generally,
Yeah, it was
when
just
you
an
were doing
example. It
that, I
wasn't
don't want
actual
people to
current
think
state.
there, because
Yeah.
to Mrs. Steinke's point, you have 2 math teachers, right? But we had a third section of students. We actually had some students who were at the middle school who were coming to the high school
Yeah, yes.
because they didn't have access to that. So I just want to make sure that people didn't take what you
Yeah.
said literally.
Yeah, that was just an
But yes,
example.
that's the
Hypothetical.
concept, yes.
And then one last question. So we talked about testing and choosing 40 children. So what do we do when the inevitable happens and child number 41, the parents call and say, why is my child not in the accelerated class? I want them in the accelerated class.
So that's a great question, and I will say we haven't had those discussions quite yet. We do want to make sure that we have several data points. So right now, we've identified the 40 students that have the particular score on the CDT. We do want to cross-reference that with their scores when we get the PSSA scores back this summer, which we should get back in a few weeks. So we would just want to make sure with that score that makes sense and that we have, a metric with that. And also that we do take a look at the grade that they had in their class as well, just to make sure that, everything is on track for that. So we do want to make sure that we have more than just this one.
And we would
CDT
encourage
score.
parents who may think their child is
Certainly.
on the bubble to call the the building administrators and to come in and sit down and have that conversation,
Yeah.
right? The goal is, high tide is what we're looking for. We want everyone, if we have students who really want to challenge themselves, and, we certainly want to make sure that they have a good opportunity to be successful, but we would want to have that conversation.
Yeah, and I've always been of the mindset that I would rather a student challenge themselves than not. So if that's really something that a student wants, assuming that it makes sense with the data and we have a conversation with the family, I think, I would always encourage that.
Okay, thank you.
One last question. So 40 kids, is that going to be 2 classrooms of 20? Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
likely, yes.
Can we just take, and this could have just been a cross of estimates with the quotes, can we just take a look at the actual cost? Because there's 2 quotes and they
Yes.
didn't match.
So actually what happened was we received the initial quote, which is what was in the board agenda.
Right.
And then she actually sent me an updated quote today.
Okay.
So that's why they don't quite match.
Yes, thank you. Frank brought it to my attention.
Yeah,
so
that's why.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we reference the old number here. So if when we get to the voting meeting
Yeah,
next
we'll
week,
adjust
if that
it.
number could be
Yeah, we'll
fixed.
adjust it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, 7:11, old or new business? Nothing,
We're going to move, Nikki, if you don't mind, we're going to move to 10 because we also have some other visitors here, Mrs.
Sure, I'm a
Saucer.
team player.
And so that's okay. We would have slid you up. We moved 9 up. We would have done 9, 10 and gone to the beginning. So all good, all good, all good. I just saw people that were here and
Soccer practice here, and I don't know these fine folks up, and thank you, I'm so sorry.
that's okay. So we're going to start with 10 now.
Let's just arrow back and forth, this way to go to the next slide, right? All right. It was really difficult, first of all, to choose pictures, because I just have to say, this was one of the best experiences of my entire life, and of course, being short a few days of 52, I'm sure these guys here have a lot more life to live, but so far, that's all I've heard from all the kids that have gone, I'm sorry if you guys can hear me, is this was the best thing I've ever done, can we go next year, can we? And I really want to, before I get too far, thank Dr. O'Donnell for sacrificing her entire Easter break to spend time with a bunch of high school students and my husband and I. You were amazing. And because of you, I have the pictures that I never would have gotten with my lack of skills with that little generation gap there. So, and I'll try to make this quick because I didn't want to put too many pictures on here and I want these kiddos to have a chance to speak. So this was just a quick picture before we got on the bus. It was a great idea to try to get everybody together to get on the bus instead of meeting at the airport when the flight is at, 6 a.m. So that ended up being one of those things that I will do from now on, and I'm sure in another 2 years for the Spain, Germany, France trip. Jody, who's in charge of that, of course, as her right-hand woman, I will be happy to do that again. So I'm so excited for that trip, but this is all about this trip, and I wish these kiddos could go, but they will be graduating. Just a quick, I think this, you took this, Shannon, because I was not even able to get a good view there. One of the first things we did on our first full day there was a zip lining course. Never in my life have I been zip lining, so to do a course was like 12 times back and forth was very terrifying. I figured, and of course I was helping one of the students at one point, and surprisingly, maybe wasn't paying attention, didn't listen to the fact that you're supposed to pull down to brake as you get, close to the platform. So I went flying, they braked for me. The first 3 times I'm like, why am I not slowing down? Now I know for the future. These kids did great. Nobody decided to back out. Everybody was, and I'll show you the video in the next one. If I go to, how do I do that video? Click there. We'll just go if I click again. I think so, okay. That is McKenna, right? With Lillian Emerson. Yeah, there was one part where you could double up. And of course, I think that's just me coming in. As you'll see, I didn't slow down. Yep, I kept thinking, I'm gonna crash. That's one way to go out in life, all right. Yeah, that's exactly what you're not supposed to do. There was oh my God. Our order of things got a little bit changed. We did go to the hot springs, different pools, different temperatures. You could put the mud, the bubbling mud all over yourself, and I had some funny pictures from those. With the kids being in their bathing suits, I just left those out just for their sake to, not embarrass anybody. Even though we pretty much were living in sweats and tanks and, just sweating all over the place together all week, but they were great about it. I mean, nobody complained. They loved it. They put mud all over. You go in the sauna. We did it. We know we have those pictures too. Those are great for wedding receptions, bribery, things like that in the future, parents. Since I made a flash drive for everybody with all the pictures that, of course, Dr. O'Donnell took most of, I realized some didn't quite get there, but everybody has one on Google Drive too. So to me, that was the best gift to give everybody, pictures that we couldn't all get. We did a cooking class, they were making soap. I mean, there was just so much even in those first couple days. The kids were busy nonstop. And this was just the first area that we were in around Guanacaste, not far from where we landed. They got to experience milking a cow. I know for some kids they're never near any rural areas, so it's not one of those things that a lot of kids even get to experience. But in this district, we have a little bit more of a connection to the rural area. But for other students, maybe in other school districts, but some of them still may not ever have gotten a chance to do something like this. So, that was pretty amusing. They went right in. They tried all kinds of things. We also did, walking tour to see all of the sustainability, everything they're trying to do to reuse, recycle. It's a lot, and I won't go into super details. But I mean, it was a huge area. And of course, snorkeling was into. I mean, of course, we go into like the next day. By now, that wasn't all in one day. And some of these kids never did snorkeling before. So to them, it was super exciting. Everybody, again, there was nothing that anyone decided that they didn't want to do. So everybody wanted, it was very family-like. We all participated in everything together. That's just some views from the beach. We had some monkey friends who wanted to steal our belongings. It was a private beach. They almost got away with it, but I was the only one actually who didn't go snorkeling because I've been there, done it, and I decided just to stay and kind of man things. good thing I did because of that guy. So that was kind of like my view there with the hammocks, and and we had all kinds of fruit and snacks until we got to our chance to eat lunch. We also had a chance to go to a house lived in by some of the locals in that area and do tostones, taking the plantains and actually making them ourselves, which I've done a lot. And of course, you know, I was like, go for it, guys. It's great. A cooking class was, you know, again, another chance for them to learn something that they don't normally get to do in school. On our way to the Arenal volcano, one of the most famous volcanoes. We can't get real close, obviously, but we at least tried to get some pictures. And we had a hiking tour, not at this volcano, obviously it'd be a little scary, but we went to this one, which has a whole area that you can just admire everything. It's gorgeous. There's even those bubbling springs again with the mud and all that stuff. It was called Parque Nacional Rincón de la Vieja. Rincón is corner. Vieja refers to the old woman, and there's, you know, a whole story behind that too that they got to learn about. So again, this was our hike. Such amazing things to see. The trees were, again, it's hard to see and appreciate it with these pictures, but to be there and to see these things, and the views were amazing. And just some more from, this was our boat tour. So again, I forget, I think they're called camones. Caimanes. They look like alligators, but they're not as terrifying. But again, it was another chance to be outdoors, and this time to be on a boat. One of our favorite and most exhausting parts of our trip was to go to the La Fortuna waterfall. Breathtaking. The only terrible part was getting to going up, how many steps? Hundreds. I forget. I should have looked it up again because I forgot since then. I'd say, I don't know, let's just say 400 steps. I mean, you could stop and take a break, which I certainly did. No shame in my game, but it really made you realize how far down you went, and that was the bottom part you can see here. Well, sorry, we're not quite there yet. That's from far away. Ooh. Did I just hit the power button or just hit that bottom one button? Okay, here we go. Never mind. I mean, it was gorgeous. Let me see if I went too far. Nope. All right. This is the part where, I think it's the next one. There's a video, in the middle, because the videos always have the thin border. So that whole area, kids could swim, not really swimming, hanging out. That's Asher over there on the left. And Haley, who's not here, but so again, everybody just kind of waded in the water, did their own thing. We went to a tour of a coffee farm, and they got to learn all about the coffee making. You can buy coffee, taste test. So again, we were just busy. We just kept one thing after another. They did get to sleep, believe it or not. But yeah. For sure. On the last full day that we had there, whitewater rafting. So of course, those are always amazing pictures because it was, one or two of them lost shoes, one or two fell out. But every raft has, you know, the guide. So it wasn't as if without all the gear and the helmets and I mean, they loved it. Some of them said that was the best part of the trip. So just a couple more action shots. I tried to get every group, which I know from where you're sitting, you probably can't tell who some of the kids are anyways. Just wanted to get some fun shots of the food. I think most would agree they weren't hungry often. They had a lot of variety, a lot of local cuisine. I think rice and beans got to be a little bit, you know, after a while, okay, don't want to look at those again for a while, but they certainly had a huge variety of vegetables and meat and other protein sources for the vegetarians. Just some pictures. Sorry if you didn't eat dinner yet, but. And some little stops along the way. Our wonderful tour guide that was with us the entire time, Victor, he did a little bit of, improvising. As we had maybe a little bit of extra time here and there, he took us to some places that were not originally on the itinerary and took us to his favorite ice cream shop and other little cities on the way, let us go into local grocery stores just to experience again what it's like to be there, to live there. And I know you've had extensive experience there too, so this was my first time, but I was extremely impressed. And and very happy overall with how everything went. And I just want to thank all of you again for your support in making this happen for the students. If not for your approval and your support, it would not have happened. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. It was, like I said, the best experience of my lifetime. And just to turn it over to, did you want to go first, Asher, and get to soccer practice? Yeah. No.
Sorry, I'm a little wet from soccer practice, but is the mic on? Okay, so I'm just going to read a little something I wrote for my English assignment about Costa Rica. It's called A Meaningful Moment. We just chose 3 of them from the month of May, or April, one of them. But it goes, my first meaningful moment was the Spanish class's trip to Costa Rica. We spent 1 week in the Central American jungle, visited famous landmarks, but most importantly, ate various Latin American foods. There's so much to explain about this trip, so I cannot include everything. The main experience I would like to share about Costa Rica is how dedicated, kind, and affable our tour guide was. His name is Victor, and all the extra behind-the-scenes work he did to make our trip so amazing just shows what type of character he is. He worked endlessly through struggles and recurring problems, for example, not having enough hotel rooms. Yet he still would come every morning with a smile on his face and knowledge to pass on to us. Victor's actions fostered a memorable trip of a lifetime that our students will never forget. Spending time with Victor was a meaningful experience because of the relationship that we all built with him, and he's just such a genuine individual. His effort and determination left everyone inspired to learn more about his country, visit new places, or just take on some of his traditions. Every morning, Victor inspired us with a quote, and he said, we can use to improve your day. This tradition may have influenced students to live in the moment or make the best out of each day. Victor truly made our experience in Costa Rica last a lifetime and inspired us with genuine personality, determination, and courage. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was a great trip. Had lots of fun. Definitely would do it again, but sadly can't go on the next one because I'm graduating. But thanks again.
I just wanted to comment is that I was looking at the pictures, looking at the people who went on the trip, and just the smiles. Even the parents are like, hey, I recognize some of the people in here. So it was nice seeing the interaction because you remembered the picture. For us, it's first time, but you were living that memory of what you saw, and to see the smiles come back, and then the parents going, hey, I know that person, was equally. So thank you for sharing.
I'm not as tall as Asher, so I gotta fix that. Good evening. My name is McKenna Holben, and I'm a rising senior here at SV. I first would like to say a special thank you to Senora Saucer for making this trip possible because it truly was an adventure of a lifetime. The insight that I've gained and memories I have made from this trip have drastically changed the way I view things for the better. I feel that I'm a more well-rounded person, and this trip makes me excited and want to experience more. The thought of traveling to a foreign country without my family terrified me at first, and this was my first time ever out of the country, and to do it alone left a pit in my stomach every time I thought about it. But I would soon come to learn that I truly was not alone, and I would leave with closer bonds to my peers, chaperones, tour guides, and a beautiful country. Our tour guide's name was Victor, and as soon as he introduced himself, he said that we would travel his home country together as a family. Our bus driver's name was Leo, and he spoke little English, but with just a few nights under our belt, during dinner one night, he introduced himself to my friend group, and putting our Spanish class skills to use collaboratively, we managed to have a conversation with him in Spanish and maybe a little English. He showed us pictures of his children and asked about our lives and the activities we participated in. Victor and Leo showed us Costa Rica's capturing nature, the beauty and community of its people, and gave us lots of their favorite cookies and treats during our travel time. By immersing myself in a new culture, I felt elated and like I was truly experiencing something that mattered. What I really took away from this trip is that just because something is different doesn't mean it has to be scary. Sometimes feeling scared can be a good thing. It means that what lies ahead might be a bit of a challenge, but despite the challenge, it will have some of the best outcomes. I truly will forever be grateful for this opportunity and urge everyone to take advantage of any opportunities being presented to you. Thank you for your time.
round a few kids up after 17 of them total that weren't hiding from you. I appreciate it, believe me. Not everyone's even around. People are on vacation, so thank you.
Yep. So this was my first time being out of the country, and I have to say that I loved every bit of the experience. I loved just all the time spent experiencing these new things in Costa Rica and bonding with my peers and friends. And as Asher and McKenna said, Victor, our tour guide, and our bus driver, Leo, put in lots of amazing work. They did a very good job, and I think foreign trips like this and other trips for immersing ourselves in different cultures is a great thing, and I feel like there should be more trips in the future for SV kids to be able to go on, because it was just an amazing experience, and I don't think I could ask anything more from Senior Saucer and all the people that helped on the Costa Rica trip.
Thank you so much for coming. I know you're probably anxious to go, but we are so proud of you, and I really appreciate all of our teachers, Mrs. Saucer, her husband, Dr. O'Donnell, Mrs. Alder, the way that you've built the world language program in our school district, and giving students this opportunity to travel abroad is something that has, as you can hear, has forever changed their opinion, and it will be one of the highlights of their school experience. So thank you so much. I know it was over a holiday. We are just so grateful. I know you guys took time away from your family, but you were with a family, and that made it really fun. So thank you all so much, and we will not be offended if you want to sneak out. We will not be offended, okay? Let's give them one round of applause again.
You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to leave.
Thanks for coming. Okay, we'll continue with 10.3, ECYEH agreement with BCIU. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the agreement with BCIU for regional support for students who are eligible for services per the ECYEH program. We have that agreement attached. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. 10.4, we have a settlement agreement for student number 4479 in the amount listed below. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of this settlement agreement and release for student number 4479. And that agreement is also attached. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move that forward. 10.5, we have a trust agreement for student number 4479. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the third-party trust agreement for student number 4479. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. 10.6, we have an agreement with Karen Foundation for SAP for the 25-26 school year in the amount listed. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the agreement with Karen Foundation for SAP services for the 25-26 school year effective July 1st, 2025 through June 30th of 2026. And that agreement is attached for review. Any questions about that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move that forward. 10.7, we have a settlement agreement for student number 4199 in the amount listed below. And the committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the settlement and release agreement for student number 4199. We do have that agreement in our packets. Any conversation about that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move that forward. 10.8, any other old or new business for the committee? Let's see, we might have a promulgation update discussion coming soon. events?
We do, actually. That was going to be tonight, but it's actually going to be next week. So Mrs. Godfrey actually has some locations and did some footwork on that, and she will be here on Monday to present that to the board.
I just publicly want to reiterate what an amazing graduation we had. I mean, it was spectacular, and it took all hands on deck. So I publicly want to thank each and every person that participated and had their hands in the event. I know it was pretty much every single person sitting here, plus those that are not able to be here. So thank you again. It was an amazing event and done well. And I am thankful that I get to participate in that each and every year. So thank you again.
I agree. Couldn't have been said better. Thank you. Okay. Moving back to number 8.
Back to me, save the best for last. 8.0, budget and finance. 8.1, we have no one. 8.2, approval ratification of bills. The committee is requested to consider and recommend the board approve, ratify the payment of bills in the following amounts from May 12th, 2025 to June 24th, 2025. General Fund, $1,672,533.65. Cafeteria Fund, $39,667.81. Capital Improvement, $32,921.92. Capital Reserve Fund, $43,290. Middle School, High School Activity Fund, $60,611.94 for a grand total of $1,849,025.32. Any questions? We'll move that forward. 8.3, the committee is requested to consider and recommend approval for the business office personnel to process bills for payment up to and including the June 30th, 2025. The list of bills will be presented for ratification at next week's regular board meeting, at the regular board meeting in July of 2025, since we're off just by a couple days. Any questions regarding that? Moving that forward, the 8.4, the depositories for the 25-26 fiscal year. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following depositories for the 25-26 fiscal year. Tompkins Vist Bank, the PA School District Liquid Asset Fund, the PA School District Liquid Asset Max Fund, and TD Bank. Any questions regarding those? Moving that forward. 8.5, the committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the liability and workman's comp insurance package from Alara Group for the 25-26 school year in the amount of $237,634. Questions regarding those rates? We will move that forward. Can you just tell me how much of a difference was that in previous years? I'm just curious.
So it ended up being about a $35,000 increase from prior year. The largest increases were on the property side. Our umbrella policy increased slightly. There was more coverage built into the majority of the clients that they service. So that was about a $15,000 increase overall. There was also a $5,000 increase in the new violent incident protection clause within the insurance itself, and that could be utilized for instances where you would have an active shooter. And the other portion, the other large piece of this, is also the workers' compensation. They normally do a 3-year look back for claims, and then also payroll itself. Payroll is always increasing year over year, and that would factor into your overall workers' compensation increase then.
Right. Okay, perfect. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll move that forward. 8.6, The electricity renewal, the committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the Director of Finance to authorize a rate lock for the upcoming electricity renewal on behalf of the district while working with the solicitor on agreement review. This allows the district to lock in when rates are most favorable. Question regarding that? Moving that forward. 8.7, the Treasurer's Report. Any question regarding that? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. And we do have a voting item. David, would you like to take that?
Yes, I would. I'll do that for you. 8.8, Special Educator Pipeline Grant. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the receipt of a $20,000 future Special Educator Pipeline Grant from PATTAN, which provides paid dual enrollment fees for high school students who are pursuing a career as a special education teachers, and provides a stipend for teachers who host students in the program as interns in their classroom. So I'll entertain a motion.
So move, Cleffel.
Second,
Steinke.
discussion.
This is a grant that we received, and our students can, as you heard, receive dual enrollment credits for free. It gives them a jump start on it. It's part of work being done across the state. We were one of a number of districts to be able to receive this grant, and the goal is to continue to increase attention and excitement about being a special education teacher. While students are actually in high school, that they start to get exposed to what that is and what a great career it can be. So we're excited to have students that are actually pursuing education, and specifically special education, and this will provide their courses for free.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It passes 6-0.
8.9, any old or new business under budget and finance?
Mrs. Wallace, just a quick question that I had is, I think we had the discussion on the unemployment. Like, there's a discussion now for, our non-full year employees. Like, I know some of the districts that have bus drivers are going to be more impacted by that potentially because of them being off. But I know, like, for us, we would have issues potentially with our food services. Has any more of that has come up? Has that?
No, nothing further has come up regarding that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know sometimes people just throw stuff out there and, whether it withers on the vine or whether it gets brought up later on. I just didn't know how that has progressed. You don't hear it, then all of a sudden it might be here, so.
Not as of yet.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. So, does anybody else have anything other old or new business under 8.9? Hearing none, entertain under 11.0, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Cleffel.
Second? I was going to say we can stay here all night. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. The board will meet in executive session.